I'm Tim Kittro, and here to bring home the bacon are Big Ryan the Fat Guy.
What's up, YouTube? It's the NFL Picks Against the Spread for Week 4 for the 21-22 NFL season. Fat Guy, we are 20-24-2, good for 45%. On to this week's picks. Jacksonville at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are 7.5-point favorites. 81% of early bettors are on the Cincinnati Bengals. Fat Guy, do you think there is opening line value on either side of Jacksonville or Cincy?
I mean, can we attain closing line value from opening line value? You know, I guess it's a weird way of putting it, but probably not. I do tend to like Jacksonville because you got to remember, like, think about this. How many people are actually betting Jacksonville? You got to think of it in this terms, right? And the sportsbook's just going to hang a line out there to get crushed? No. I mean, so it's 7.5 points. I probably think there's generous. It's generous towards the Jacksonville Jags simply by maybe a half point. You know, they're a professional football team. They competed today. It didn't work out against Arizona. Cincinnati with a fantastic win, right? So you got to think there's definitely a seesaw in perception. People are going to be higher on the Bengals and lower on the Jags. Does that mean buy now for the Jags? I don't think so, but I still think this 7.5 is a nice. If I can get 7.5 low juice, I think that's really good. Now we've been talking about closing line value. Potentially there is some on the Bengals, but you got to remember, like, if it moves to 8 or 8.5, are you really going to overcome the juice by buying at this price? Yeah, I beat it, but like, you know what I mean? Landing on 8, are you beating the juice? Like, is that point of difference really that relevant? Probably not, right? So, you know, I'd rather have Jags, you know, because don't forget too, when we're trying to guess where it's going, we think that it could potentially go to 8 for Cincinnati, you know, but that closing line value doesn't exist because it wouldn't beat the juice. And for me, making this pick, because I have to make it now, I like the Jags at 7.5 because it's that number is just so key. Is the 7, and especially with these two teams, from what I understand, they're not a go for it, and a lot of guys that come from strict college, i.e. Urban Meyer, they're less likely to do 2-point conversions and things like that. So you're gonna, like, 7 becomes more key because the value of each number is almost floating, which is getting very difficult for Big Ryan and I to figure out because you know, every time you come up with an idea, it just gets expounded on, right? And also Zach Taylor, I find to be a little bit more conservative. I don't have data in front of me, but in terms of like going for it on 4th and stuff like that, he's a product of Sean McVay, if memory serves me correctly, who is probably, oddly enough, the guy who goes for at least on 4th down, which I find very, very unsettling because he's so strong in all other parts of his game. So Zach Taylor, I think, is in a similar vein to it, not as rigid though. So all of that being said, for the contest, I think 7.5 is a nice price for Jacksonville. You know, do I think they're going to win? No, but we're just talking about covering, you know, see, spreads are great. You can lose and still win. So Jacksonville in the points, mostly a contest pick. I'll be looking to it closer. And, you know, maybe I'll get 8, you know, but 7.5, I'd rather have 7.5, 7.5 with good juice than 8.5 or 8 with bad juice. So Jacksonville in the points.
And the push frequency for the home team to win by 7 is around 4%. Fat Guy, on to the next game. New York Giants at the Saints, who are 9-point favorites. They're going to finally get to play at home. 57% of early bettors are on the Saints.
I think we know where we're going to go for this one. Is we got to go with the Giants here. The 9 points, I think it's just too much, right? Like, you got to there's going to be, I think there's going to be some closing line value. Like, the Saints did beat the Patriots, right? But it's kind of like they want to flip. Like, the Giants, they did lose, but like 9 points it was close enough where, like, I think that's too many. Like, I don't see people pushing, like, laying this much with the Saints. I think there is value on the Giants here, and I think sharp money will be, you know, betting this down. I don't think this is gonna be that public of a game, right? Especially the time and setting. So I think Giants in the points is the way to go. I think there'll be a small amount of closing line value. 9 has a higher push frequency, if I am correct, than 8. And since 9 being a key number, I mean, not that key. You know, it's tier 3 of key numbers. Let's be real here. But I'd rather have that than 8. And also, too, like, Could it get pushed to 10? Then I'd kind of have egg on my face. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to bet on this game. To be honest, it's more closer to neutral, but I do think there's a higher possibility of closing line value on the Giants at 9. So I will be taking 9 in the contest. In real life, probably not going to bet this game. If I got Giants with 10, I would be, very interested. If I got Saints, at 7 with good juice, but that's probably not going to happen too. Let's be honest here, right? It's so weird. Like, you always bet the number, not the team, but it's just hard when you get in this neutral wasteland, because it's not exciting for me to say, oh, I'm not going to bet this game. Like, you want to hear a ringing endorsement. You want to hear the lock of the week. It just doesn't exist, right? And, that's why we like to pride ourselves on being different by just being honest. And it's a little difficult to do that sometimes. In this case, it'll be Giants in the points in the contest. I think there's more likely to have closing line value on the Giants, but I can't be sure. And it's just more of a neutral game for me. Contest pick Giants in the points.
Fat Guy, next up, Chiefs at the Eagles, who are 5.5-point underdogs at home. 26% of early bettors are on the Eagles. Who you got?
Here, a lot of this is tied into tomorrow's performance. We're filming this during the Green Bay San Francisco Sunday nighter, which is it's just still in the first quarter here. So the Eagles, like, this line is to use an economics term, is elastic, right? Because Eagles could get injuries, and the recency bias of the performance could shift things quite a bit. Chiefs are 1-2 here. I think this is going to be a talking point. I like to try and predict the angles that talk shows use, like Colin Cowherd, call him Colin Cowherd almost by accident, which I don't really know his metal of a man, but it's always a possibility. Like him talking about the Chiefs and maybe an overreaction. And if the Eagles get a really good performance, that could create a perfect storm where the line moves against the Eagles, right? It could end up with Chiefs -4.5. I think Chiefs, like, there's probably a little bit of value here on the Chiefs at -55.5, but closing line value, it's, you know what I mean, I think is going to side with the Eagles, because I think there's a reasonable chance they could have a good performance. And I think a lot of talking heads are going to just, not crap on the Chiefs, but doubt them, right? And that's all you need, right? Is them to, because I'm trying to, figure out which emotional strings are going to be pulled on the casual bettor, right? To get people thinking in a direction, right? Because they like to use these, oh, they're done, they're not good, and these overreactions and hyperbole week to week, right? And I like to just bet against it. I like to fade it. I like to fade superstition. And that being said, I think that could give the Eagles some leeway, especially if they have a good performance tomorrow, right? So, but then I'm also gambling if the Eagles don't get hurt. So I like the Eagles here. It's too difficult for me to bet, because I have reservations about betting a game before they already have another one, right? Because this is essentially a look-ahead line considering the Eagles play tomorrow. So like I said, for the contest, this is definitely going to be Eagles +5.5, but I think there could be closing line value on it. But again, that's predicated on no injuries for the Eagles tomorrow, and at least a reasonable performance. So, and you could get like a weird lucky thing too, where I guess you could take the Eagles here and then, say it goes down to Chiefs -3 or something, and you can get a middle. Push frequency isn't that high on 5. It's higher than usual the last couple of years, and 4. But there's a possibility you get like a Chiefs -3.5, Eagles +5.5. So I'm going to be talking a lot about middles, because there's more, what do you think, Big Rye, just from a anecdotal perspective? Do you think there's more like line shifting than we remember from opening? It just seems very fluid this year.
I think we can probably credit it to just more bets coming in general with the legalization of betting. And the more bets come in, the larger the markets get, the more that's at stake for these books. So lines do tend to move. And it's a very interesting time to be studying sports betting markets. So it's a fun time for you and I. But absolutely, that's it. We got the Eagles. Let's move on to the next game.
Yeah.
Houston Houston at Buffalo, 17.5-point favorites. 85% of early bettors are on the Bills. 189 bets so far. So people high on the Bills, low on the Texans going into this one.
Come on now. We know what Davis Mills is going to score a point. He's still a professional football player. There are things to be bullish about. Like, okay, bullish is maybe a strong term, but like the Texans are still a professional football team. I get it that the Bills are borderline a powerhouse for some, or at least a top tier team for others. I'm never laying 17.5 points in this spot. Just give me the Texans. I don't want 17. I actually think 17 is, like we talked about floating numbers, I think 17 actually is probably in this spot a pretty key number, to be real here. So I like the Texans at 17.5. And I'd be happy to bet them now. I'd be okay with it. What's the worst news that could happen for the Texans? Not that, like, we've already saw these games happen, and there was no big injury, I believe, in the Bills, or even any injury implications. But that being said, 17.5 points with the Houston Texans, I think that is it's a standard BRFG bet here. So I'll be taking the Texans and the points.
Yeah, only 9% of results where the home team wins by 18 or more points over the last 300 or so games.
Neutral, though. Those are neutral.
Fat guy, on to the next game. Carolina at Dallas. Dallas minus 4.5 at home. 62% of early bettors on the Cowboys. I know you were surprised by this line.
I was. I think it's too high. I think this is a fire sale buy now for the Panthers, to be honest. 4.5. The Cowboys, this is a look ahead line. Again, they're playing tomorrow, much like I did my big Eagles Chiefs spiel. Laying 4.5 with what is presumed to be a healthy, but possibly an unhealthy team after tomorrow. These injuries can pile up. You watch the Raiders game, they probably lost half their defense just in overtime, right? So it is very possible. And that, like, cluster injuries dramatically shift the line. And someone like Dak Prescott, who puts a lot of the team's success on their plate, has to take more chances with themselves and their body, incidentally. And that does, I think he is more likely to get injured. And that's one thing I've always wanted to study is propensity for injury, because it's not, how could it just be flatline for everyone? It just can't be, but it's such a hard thing to quantify. That being said, there is still a chance that they could get injured. Whereas Carolina, we have a pretty good idea. They're just out. They're out J.C. Horn and Christian McCaffrey, and that doesn't shift the line incredibly for me, to be honest, right? Like, obviously McCaffrey's a big deal, but they're trying out other running backs, and I think you can, by committee, you can make up a lot of those points. And I think this is almost an overreaction line, to be honest. Running backs don't hold the same fruit. ATS for me, at least, me and Big Rye. So that being said, here, I think it's a slam dunk choice here. If you can get this before the game, as a look ahead, before Dallas plays, right? 4.5 points, Carolina, book it.
Fat guy, next up, Cleveland at Minnesota, who are 1-point dogs at home. 53% of early bettors are on Kirk Cousins and the Vikings.
Okay, this is a complete neutral game for me. What do you think, Big Rye?
Yeah, we've said this about a few of these games going in. Like, you can pretty much flip a coin. Like, there's not a ton 100%. Of value either way. The opening lines are set very, very strong for these games. And not saying that these lines can't shift. Like, we might end up with Cleveland minus 2.5. We might end up with Minnesota minus 1. It's nothing that's going to be, it's nothing that unless
it's eye popping.
Yeah. Unless this gets over 3 or 3.5 either way, like, you and I are just not going to be betting this game.
I do want to share a tidbit, though, because this is a very similar situation to Tampa Bay at LA Rams last week. You could conceivably have got a free roll, because you could have bet Tampa Bay at plus 104, and you could have closed at what, plus 106 for the Rams, Big Rye?
Something like that, but I know what you mean. The line fluctuated throughout the week. We had anywhere from 2 to 2 on both sides, so you could have got closing line value on either side, especially on the money line is what I'm guessing Fat Guy is talking about.
Yeah. So you could get a free roll, because if you get them both at plus money, it's a free roll. And if you get one at 104 and one at 106, you just kind of dollar cost average to get them both at 105. You know what I mean? So you have the same payout. You risk more for one, less on another, but the payout would be the same, and you get guaranteed money. I mean, you can only make money doing that if you bet pretty much the maximum here, which would be like $3,500. I don't suggest doing that in this game, but this game, if you feel that there is going to be a shift, because the money lines here are going to be really close. Like, I'd imagine, I mean, I don't have it in front of me again, but like, Minnesota is probably slightly plus money, right? So if you think Minnesota is going to become the favorite, then by all means you should max bet it, and then bet on Cleveland at plus money. You can get a guaranteed 2-3%, which is unbelievable. But again, you're gambling on that shift. You're gambling on gambling. So I don't recommend doing it, but this is a possibility of where that could happen. So I have to throw it in there, especially when we get the anecdote of the Tampa Bay LA Rams middle or free roll. it's not even a middle, it's a free roll. It's just free money if you predicted the market right. It just has to be brought up because these plays are very interesting about betting numbers, not teams. That being said, this is a chalk game. We're just going to take Minnesota, and the 1 point is if that matters. Minnesota, I want to enjoy this game as a fan. Minnesota and the points. Point.
Yeah, that guy. Next up, Detroit at Chicago. 3.5-point favorites at home. 55% of early bettors are on Chicago. I saw this line as high as 6 until Pinnacle came out with 3.5, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think there could be a middle opportunity here. I think people are more bullish on the Lions of all teams than the Bears. The Bears, I think this is going to be the biggest talking point, is Fields' struggles. So that gets hyped up so much. That type of stuff, rookie struggles, and they're going to also lump him in with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. So that'll be like really negative talk. And I think that could, and the Lions, don't forget, lost one of the most thrilling endings to a football game you'll ever see with the Justin Tucker 66-yard NFL record-breaking field goal. Is that not going to be the highlight of the night for everybody? It has to be, right? So when you think of the eye exposure, and the Ravens have a lot of clout just beating the Chiefs in primetime, right? So when you carry that over, what that's going to equal is I think there's going to be a more optimistic outlook on the Lions and a really pessimistic one on the Bears. So that, I think that what that lends itself to is we can take the Lions now early at 3.5, and I think there could be a shift here down to 2.5. Probably bad juice though on the Bears, and then you get the middle number 3, the golden number. This is a good so this is a middle alert. I'm going to take in the contest because I think there's closing line value on the Detroit Lions, like I mentioned, simply because of recency bias to exposure. On just because the probably the two most talked about things are going to be the Tucker kick that crushes the Lions' dreams, and Justin Fields having an enormously bad day. Like that, I had to use an oxymoron because it was so crazy. It left me almost speechless. So a little bit interesting. There's a high middle chance here. So hopefully for those of our viewers that watch these videos early, and we highly recommend that you do so, we try and get them out as fast as possible because this is an opportunity. Whereas, like we said, some are just chalk, Lions in the points, but look out for a middling plays where you bet both sides. And if it lands on the number 3, you win both bets, or you just lose the juice on one. And then you have to figure out in math, is the juice worth, say you're betting, 21 over 20, so minus 105. Is that minus 105 that, that 5 or 121s, is that worth the risk of it landing on 3? And the answer is yes. Yes, there's a high push frequency on 3. So anyways, Lions and the points for closing line value for the contest, but I'm going to be looking to middle this game.
Fat guy, next up, Tennessee at the lowly Jets, who are 7.5-point dogs at home. Only 5% of early bets were placed on the Jets. I saw this line start at 6, but it opened at Pinnacle at 7.5.
Yeah, well, it's probably pushing the equilibrium. Again, we have to use the same thing we do with Jacksonville, Cincinnati. Does the book really just hang a number to get killed on? Because the Jets, can they really look worse? And the answer is no, theoretically. Again, we could look down this years ahead and go, why did you just open these at 10? You know what I mean? But this is one of those things where we're just going to take the Jets. We don't like it. There's more than likely closing line value on the Titans. But like I mentioned before, you're gambling on that shift, right? And there's a possibility that that shift could even occur the other way. It's unlikely, right? But people aren't running to the book to bet on the Jets. They're probably not running to even bet against them, even on the strong Tennessee Titans, strongish. So I think 7.5. I'd rather gamble on, like, if I lost, considering I have to bet now, like not bet, I have to in the contest take it. I'd feel more I'd be more remiss if it moved to 7 and I had to get that than 7.5. So 7.5 in the points is just far better. Because if it moves to 8, you're still like what closing line value did you attain? You're not really beating the juice. Even 8.5, I think there'd be an argument in there as well. So it'd have to be like 8.5 good juice or a 9, right? So I just don't see that movement. There's this really chalk game, not really that interested in it. So Jets in the points for the contest, and I don't think there's CLV either way.
Fat guy, next up, Indy at Miami, who are 1.5-point favorites at home. 41% of early bettors on the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think that this is a tough one too. It's another. I'm just going to take Indy here. A CLV, I'm unsure of closing line value. That is, it's just a tough one. Like me and Big Ryan are just backstage, we'll call it, are flip flopping on this one as well. Indy hasn't really performed that well, ATS. So I think there could be some sort of a regression to the mean, but that regression to the mean happens through dilution. It doesn't just drop off a cliff and then bounce back, right? It comes through a dilution of results, and that dilution doesn't really happen over a 17 game sample, right? So, perhaps they're slightly undervalued, the Indianapolis Colts. I think they're a much better team than Miami, but injuries and what have you aside, there's a reason this came out as 1.5 point favorites of the Dolphins. So, purely in what I'd like to watch this game. Like I found the Dolphins game very exciting, the Dolphins Raiders game, Raiders 3-0. But I have a soft spot for the Colts. I kind of like them, so I'm a bit bullish on them as well. I definitely won't be betting this game, but I'll be monitoring it as a fan. So unsure of closing line value, so I can't give a stamp of endorsement. So I'll just take Indianapolis in the points. Is this plural? 1.5?
Next up, we have the Washington football team traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, who are 1 point favorites at home. 44% of early bettors on the Falcons. I know people, part of our YouTube membership in the Discord, are really talking about why the Falcons are favorites against Washington.
Recent results, is that like that's the only way I can think of it? Because from a strength standpoint, I mean, Washington should be a better personnel top to bottom, except you do have Matt Ryan against Taylor Heineke, who's not exactly a premier quarterback, but Matt Ryan hasn't exactly been Matty Ice for quite some time. So to ascertain that type of QB battle, let's call it how you will. This is another game though I think that could have a similar implications to the Bucks at Rams this past week, or this week, like I had mentioned with Cleveland, Minnesota. So you could get plus money. I'm not sure what price your book offers on Washington, and this could flip too, right? Because I'd imagine that a lot of the handicapping public still likes Washington, even though that defense hasn't exactly performed up to snuff. So there's a chance you could get some free money here, but it is risky because you do have to max bet on one side to really make it worth your while. All that being said, this is purely a contest to pick. I'll be bullish because I am bullish on the Washington football team, and I'll take the 1 point, and let's go football team.
Next up, we have Seattle traveling to San Fran to take on the 49ers, who are 3 point favorites at home. 70% of early bettors on San Fran. This was a look-ahead line. Obviously, San Fran is playing right now while the Fat Guy and I are recording this. So barring any major injuries, this is what the projected line is after that game.
Yeah, because obviously it's stalled right now because, if you left it up and someone got injured, you could just instantly bet, on the Seahawks and get some value. So this is just such a tough one. I mean, just a battle from the best division in the NFL. Another game where I'm, I'd love to give you a strong opinion. I just can't give you one, right? And I don't see it right for opportunity. I think 3 with 11/10 on both sides is just a win for the book either way. I don't think that long-term this can be beat, assuming San Francisco's status stays the same during this game against the Green Bay Packers. I don't want to say green. I took the out. Anyways, we'll take Seattle in the points because when in doubt, take the points. Also, too, this could be a do-up situation. Of course, the do-up, do-down situation for San Francisco is in limbo because we don't know the results of the Packers game. And what we mean by that is not that this game means anything to me, what happens in the Green Bay Packers or San Francisco, but the betting public, which does make up, about half the meat, or, a lot more than half, but 60-70% of the meat on the bone is dictated by how they bet. They're not always one way, but they do tend to play favorites of, strong recent results. So that's what we mean by recency bias, and the result of the game. Game doesn't matter to us, but it matters to those that we're trying to beat with numbers. So we're going to take Seattle on the points, and this is just going to be a good game to watch.
Fat Guy, next up, Arizona at the LA Rams, who are 6 point favorites at home. 58% of early bettors on the Rams.
Rams, great game. This is a tough one here. We have Arizona here. I think there's more likely to be closing line value on the Rams. But I think there's value on Arizona at 6. I'm probably not going to bet this game to be real. Again, we're going to monitor the market, and anytime we get a price that we feel is right, then we will strike. It sounds so lame, but we're going to take the Arizona Cardinals. When in doubt, take the points. This is another one of those games. Rams are the best team in the division, but are they 6-point better than the Arizona Cardinals? I know I'm going short in the last few because it's not as strong to the opportunities aren't ripe for. I don't feel they're ripe, so I don't want to expound on them too much. So it's going to be purely a contest pick, Cardinals and the points. But I think if you are trying to gauge closing line value, I think there's more likely for it to be on the Rams, but I don't think it's going to be substantial. Again, I could be wrong. Lines have been more fluid this year than I do remember.
Fat guy. On to the next game. Pittsburgh at Green Bay, who are 6.5-point favorites in this look-ahead scenario. 76% of early bettors are on the Packers at 6.5.
I want to flip this bet. We have down Pittsburgh, and Green Bay's currently winning. So I think there is going to be more closing line value because if Green Bay does pull this off, I think that'll give them more clout, and this could push it to 7. 6.5 is a strong, it's a strong number. If it goes the other way, if it goes to 7, I'm going to lose it, right? So if the number goes to 7 or 7.5 for Green Bay, and I end up with, and I have it at 6.5, that's a big win. And it's not like Steelers are going to have a lot of positive news coming out. I think Ben Roethlisberger threw it 58 times, something like that, putting up 10 points, losing to the Cincinnati Bengals, which is just unacceptable for Steelers fans, who I would imagine are big bettors. So if Steelers fans abstain, I think that the market will totally tilt towards Green Bay, right? And the reason that I have to change it during production, I guess that's not really a thing, is because I'm looking and I'm seeing Green Bay win. So we have to do this so early, right? And it's just a look ahead line more or less, because the game should be off the board because the game's currently underway. But I think the recency bias of Green Bay's victory and the Steelers, let's say ugly defeat to Cincinnati Bengals could allow some closing line value. So laying 6.5 with Green Bay, I think, is reasonable.
Next up, Baltimore at Denver at Mile High. 2-point favorites at home. 9% of early bettors are on the Broncos at this price.
Yeah. I actually think there's closing line value on the Broncos, but I think there's a middle opportunity here. See, you bet the Broncos at 2. If we get, say I could see it shift to 3, not 3.5 for the Broncos, but there's a possibility if you get Broncos with, listen, indulge my fantasy here. Lay the 2.5. So sell 0.5 point to try and get a little bit more positive juice. And then if I'm right and it goes to 3, then you can buy a hook. So buy a 0.5 point, assuming your book gives you something reasonable. And the juice should give you enough room for a middle here, because if the line shifts to Denver -3 and you have to, 3 with good juice, you could buy a 0.5 point. I hate doing it unless I'm getting a middle, which this could very well. So you could sell a 0.5 point here, buy a 0.5 point later, and you should be able to get a middle. And this is all predicated on me gambling with the idea that I do think there could be a small shift Denver's way, even though all the pros, and I do think there is value on the Ravens. Ravens just to win the game. I like Ravens money line, to be honest, in this game. But I think there's closing line value on Denver with a possibility of a middle. So I know I'm getting really convoluted and complex, but this is just an interesting spot here, right? The Justin Tucker kick will get replayed, and I think, you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to give him street cred, barely beating the Lions by the thinnest of margins. Literally a centimeter, you know what I mean? You hit that support stand a centimeter towards you, that's you lose to the Lions, you know what I mean? And I'm kicked out of Survivor. That's just how it goes. So I think there is closing line value slightly on the Broncos, but we're going for a middle here. I like the middling opportunities this year because I feel like the Lions are more fluid. So we're going to take Denver, and even though I think Baltimore is probably going to win the game, because we're trying to get closing line value, and this is a middling opportunity. So what kind of guy would I be if I said I think Baltimore's going to win, but I think there's better value on a middle? I know this is convoluted. Listen to it twice if you have to. We really like the YouTube ad revenue. Thank you, AdSense, I guess. So I'm going to be Denver laying the points.
Yeah, interesting. Fat Guy noted there that Justin Tucker was 2 big rise away from missing that kick. On to the Sunday night game where Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to New England to take on the Pats, who are 5.5-point dogs at home. 8% of early bettors are on Bill Belichick and the Patriots.
Yeah, we're gonna be taking the Pats here. This is one in the comment section you guys should, write what I'd like to hear a debate about myself, just because I don't know where this would shift. I feel like the Patriots are hard to gauge, and I'm curious at the elasticity of Buccaneers support, because Buccaneers aren't really just the Buccaneers. They're Tom Brady's Buccaneers. So bettors Tom Brady's the only guy that's made money for I think for the casual NFL fan, because NFL is just a brutally hard market to beat. So I think their dollars are just so entrenched behind Brady, and this will be another storyline, Brady versus Belichick. And I don't know, I don't really care. It's male soap opera. It does nothing for me. But however, I want to be predictive though. That's just how we are, right? So it's I don't know which way it's going to shift. So when in doubt, New England and the points, and that's going to be it. So I'm curious what you guys think about this game and where you think the line really should be. And I'd like to hear about that in the comment section.
And the Monday night game this week is going to be 5-star entertainment between the Las Vegas Raiders and the LA Chargers, who are 3-point favorites at home. 28% of early bettors are on the Chargers. In fact, we had interesting dialogue before the start of this video on this game and the LA Chargers. Yeah.
He's giving me a nice setup here in talking about an underrated team. I think that their results, despite having a massive win against the Kansas City Chiefs, the results haven't reflected the strength of their team. I think this is an underrated team, this LA Chargers. I think the Raiders have, I'm wearing the hat. I like the logo. I like the history. But again, we're betting numbers, not teams. I think the Chargers are a much better team. And I know I don't like handicapping things, but I think a lot of their in-game results haven't matched their coaching prowess and decision making. I think this is a new look Chargers, and I think they're really good. And I think this Chiefs win, it's got to push the betting public in the direction of the Chargers. I just don't see how. I think there's going to be closing line value, because this Big Ryan and I both think this could end up 4.5. Could. I wouldn't want the middle there at 4. I don't think that's key enough of a number. I just think get a nice 3. Get a nice 3 down. You know what I mean? I even think money line is reasonable too. I like the Chargers, and this is maybe a little bit handicapping bias, but just from what I've seen, I think their 2-1 results don't even reflect how strong of performances they've had on both sides of the ball. I think there's been some critical errors that have happened, unlikely errors that have happened on offense, and the defense has played very, very, very well. I know I don't like handicap. I despise handicapping stuff, but I think that the Raiders have been fortunate with a lot of things that have happened, and the Chargers have been unfortunate, even though they're still 2-1. So I just think that there's a skill gap here. I don't think this is a chalk game whatsoever. I like the Chargers. I think there's closing line value on the Chargers. I don't even mind laying a negative money line on the Chargers. I like the Chargers.
All right, Fat Guy, on to the lightning round. Jacksonville at Cincinnati.
Jacksonville Jags.
The Giants at the Saints.
The New York Giants.
The Kansas City Chiefs at the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Houston at Buffalo.
Big boys spread, Houston.
Carolina at Dallas.
Weird line. Let's go with the Panthers.
Cleveland at Minnesota.
Minnesota Vikings.
Detroit at Chicago.
Can we get a middle here with the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears? But I'm taking Detroit in the contest.
Tennessee at the Jets.
Jets.
Colts Dolphins.
Rose-colored glasses. The Indianapolis Colts.
Washington at Atlanta.
Part of rose-colored glasses. Washington football team. Almost caught myself.
Seattle at San Fran.
Chalk. Seattle Seahawks.
Arizona at the LA Rams.
Arizona Cardinals.
Pittsburgh at Green Bay.
This is calling an audible. Green Bay Packers.
Baltimore at Denver.
Denver, hoping for a convoluted middle.
Tampa Bay at New England.
New England, I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. New England Patriots.
And then the Las Vegas Raiders at the LA Chargers on Monday night.
I like the Chargers on Monday night.
Congratulations to Wook Dog for winning week 2, going 13-2-1. Fat Guy, very impressive. I know you mentioned it during the live stream, but Wook Dog was the OG champ, I guess you could say.
Yeah. We weren't very organized when we first started doing these, but like everything, it evolved. And I'm glad he's able to take some sort of credit, because in our first season, we'll call it, of the contest, not to be confused with season 3's The Contest in Seinfeld. Wook Dog was the champion. He was the most accurate. We just didn't have the results or the prizes to reward him. So we're going to reward him verbally this week, and I'd be happy to pay him in Bitcoin if he is able to win. So Wook Dog, thank you for your participation, and best of luck during this season. Our champion this week, Wook Dog, or week 2.
And then Fat Guy onto the week 3 leaderboard, where we have Lion sitting alone at 10-4, and then we have a plethora of people at 9-5. Corey Andy, 888, Laser Jets, Mickey, Shiv Daddy, Jay the Infamous, Starfire, Worm77, and Detroit and Mimo, all sitting at 9-5 this week, going into Sunday night and Monday Night Football.
A lot of key contributors from the Discord. Very, very pleased.
And then overall, we have Colt Boy 69 sitting on top with 30 wins and 46 tries. And that includes the 2 pushes as well. So really 30 and 44 tries, an unbelievable start to the season in a 3-week sample.
Unreal. Another member of our Discord, Colty Boy 69. Colt, that's a magazine I believe I had a subscription to. Anyways, congratulations, Colty Boy 69. I'll be happy to send you the Bitcoin at the end of the year, or whatever that is by that time.
And then on to the JS715 Name of the Week honorable mentions.
Bitcoin will be $0 by the end of the contest. It's possible. That's the fun thing about this. Mason Rudolph's helmet. I believe that only Eugenie Bouchard has seen his actual helmet. Who is Tim Kitrow? It's Tim Kitzrow, by the way. And that was my most disappointing thing. No one... NBA Jam. He's the voice of NBA Jam. The greatest arcade game of the 90s. Break My Nints with Cooling Mutts. All right. Singletary and Ready to Mingletary. All right. Not applicable. I don't know what happened here.
Someone put not applicable, so I thought, hey, that's got to get in there. That's an excellent one.
Oh, absolutely. I got confused at my own segment. Soldier Fields, obvious one. Fat Guy for Tisuk. And that's let's see if I got that right. I did get a little bit of a tip off that it's an Irish word, and I know how to say Siobhan, that should be enough, right? So we'll see how I did in the pronunciation critical score I'll get in the Discord, only for subscribers.
This is the JS715 Name of the Week. Whoa, kaboom!
And the JS715 Name of the Week, Charles Hayden Savage killed the absent-minded waiter. So, of course, alluding to a very popular TV show out right now, and it's topical, and I like things that are topical. And, you could say there's a double entendre with being football-related, considering, that guy with the gloves, and that waiter and his family that ended up with his Heisman Trophy. I'll let you guys connect the dots on that one.
Remember, you can make your picks against the spread for Week 4 at BigRye.com. There is a $100 prize. We are sending in Bitcoin to the regular season winner.
Get that address.
That's it for Week 4, Fat Guy. A couple of weird ones, but a lot of these lines are very spot on. Like you and I are pretty much saying, like, you could flip a coin. There's 3 or 4 picks here where, we are very, very indifferent on which side, which means that it's definitely not going to be a bet. But there is a few opportunities. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you could always feel differently. That's the beauty of the market, is that you get to put pen to paper. You get to take your opinions and back them by your hard-earned dollars. And that's why this exists. And you and I are more enamored with the behavior behind those decisions more than the actual results, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Good luck for your picks in week 4.